When Henry Huntington paid $9,600 to the city of Long Beach on October 30th, 1901 for the right to operate an electric rail line from Los Angeles to Long Beach had a population of only around 2,000 people and had not yet elected its first mayor. Yet, only 8 months later, on July 4th, 1902, our then small beachside community was inundated with over 30,000 visitors from Los Angeles and the surrounding region, all who came to celebrate the opening of the new electric rail line. In overwhelming success, the Pacific Electric's Long Beach line gave rise to one of the greatest public transportation systems in world history. And so popular was its crown jewel, the line from downtown Los Angeles to Long Beach, that entire communities and new cities sprung up from the orange groves and farmland along the route, such as Watts and Compton. But as transformative as was the growth of the Pacific Electric, its abandonment was even more devastating, with what seemed like one short-sighted blunder following another, each time at the expense of the public's economic well-being. Original highway development plans from the 1930s, which included light rail in the medians of the new freeway networks, were forgotten, as freeways were seen as the end of stop-and-go traffic congestion, not the inception of the endlessly gridlocked traffic that has since come to characterize the region. Our Long Beach line was the last of all the former Pacific Electric routes to be replaced by buses, but replaced by a diesel bus line along the newly constructed Long Beach Freeway it was in 1961, in spite of the dedicated and passionate opposition of countless community stakeholders who saw the perils of such a loss. And they were right to be opposed. Shortly after the Long Beach line's abandonment in 1961, unemployment rates in Watts, a community long dependent on the Pacific Electric for transportation to places of employment and other everyday necessities, skyrocketed overnight, as a commute that may have taken only half an hour on the Pacific Electric could now take as much as 3 times as long, transferring between numerous diesel bus routes, all of which were always at risk of being slowed to a crawl and arriving late due to the area's increasingly inescapable roadway congestion, a problem not seen on the private right-of-ways of the Pacific Electric. So was the status quo in Los Angeles and Long Beach for the latter part of the 20th century. But as congestion and smog began to seep into the lives of more and still more area residents, many began to question the dystopian direction it seemed our cities were headed, and the wisdom of scrapping our region's once glorious light rail system. Finally, on July 14, 1990, reason and foresight had at long last prevailed, and service on the Pacific Electric's original line to Long Beach was reestablished, and the light rail line we now know as our Metro Blue Line began gliding smoothly down Long Beach Boulevard after nearly 3 decades of seemingly ever-worsening congestion. With the onset of the second millennium, voters again and again went to the ballot box to overcome those decades of inaction and approved funding for one new set of metro projects and proposals after another. Most recently, the landslide approval of 2016's Measure M, with a 71% supermajority voting yes on the new sales tax, ensuring sustainability and mobility for a promising Southern Californian future that will look and function a lot more like Tokyo than the congested, smog-laden wasteland of unmoving freeway traffic we had long been drawing ever nearer to since the 1950s. We can't stop here, though. More must be done to correct the prevalent negligences of the latter 20th century. And now more so than ever, we are presented with a real opportunity to correct the errors of the past and hand our descendants a city we are more proud of than ever before. I propose to you today an emission-free streetcar for Long Beach, running along a similar route as some of those long-lost Pacific Electric red cars that graced our city streets back when Long Beach Boulevard was still called American Avenue. I propose that a modern resurrection and upgrade of the Pacific Electric's Long Beach lines be built in segments so as to begin operating and collecting fare revenue as soon as possible, centered around the Metro Blue Line's downtown Long Beach terminus, where the wonderful but underutilized First Street Transit Gallery can serve as a transfer station with only negligible upgrades. Extending initially down Broadway Avenue to Redondo, and shortly thereafter down the center of 2nd Street in Belmont Shore, and finally to Naples Island and back. A common thread and a permanent connection between our beloved neighborhoods, ensuring a mobile, open, and clean Long Beach for years to come. To the west of the downtown Long Beach Transit Gallery, the tracks shall diverge from the Metro Blue Line near 7th Street and follow an old Pacific Electric route past Drake Park, where a station connecting the streetcar to the Los Angeles River bike path, enabling many bicyclists a new freedom of access to both our city and the exciting revival of the Los Angeles River ecosystem will be possible. At Drake Park, the route will then cross the Los Angeles River on a newly constructed viaduct south of Anaheim Street and connect with the former Southern Pacific Railway right-of-way along 12th Street, which is now publicly owned, and finally connect with the Union Pacific Railroad and continue along leased tracks through Wilmington, and finally connecting with the tracks of the San Pedro Waterfront Red Car, where it was recently announced that the Waterfront Red Car tracks would be the beneficiary of a $40 million makeover, with those tracks being upgraded to modern light rail standards as part of the Port SoCal Village redevelopment project. And what of the overhead wires? There would be no need for those, as French railroad manufacturer Alstom has recently developed a hydrogen-powered light rail vehicle for use in Germany called the Coradia Island. Island trains could be assembled locally, creating fair-paying union jobs in Long Beach, and would require only the construction of a hydrogen fueling station, which could be developed in a strategic location as part of the Streetcar project, and in the future used to sell hydrogen to the growing population of hydrogen car drivers throughout California. No power stations or overhead wires would need to be constructed for such a streetcar, and the hydrogen propulsion engine releases no emissions locally, contributing to a cleaner Long Beach for years to come. Chronically parking deficient neighborhoods such as Belmont Shore and Alamitos Beach would benefit from such a streetcar, as residents who had previously relied on a car for their commuting and shopping activities could now simply hop on the streetcar and not worry about finding a parking space later on. Many residents would have the option to ditch their cars entirely, and while not all would do so, those that did would free up parking and decongest the roads of Long Beach for those that still drove. Funding for this project is actually already available to the City of Long Beach from a number of different sources. First, each of the past 4 successful transit funding ballot initiatives have included something called a local return allocation, and Long Beach is the beneficiary of $9,526,419 from Proposition A, $7,901,914 from Proposition C, $5,926,436 from Measure R, and most recently an additional $6,716,627 from Measure M. Between these 4 ballot measures alone, over $30 million are available to the City of Long Beach for transportation projects, surely an amount sufficient to develop plans and perform the alternatives analysis and environmental impact reports that are required by law. Additional funds from the local return allocation for the City of Los Angeles could be lobbied for as well, as both Wilmington and San Pedro are located wholly within the City of Los Angeles, and its residents would benefit from such a project in turn. As needed, additional funds for the project could be allocated from the City of Long Beach's parking enforcement revenues, as it is my opinion that parking fines ought to be spent on something that actually addresses the problems causing parking shortages and not simply dumped into the city's general fund. So, small businesses and community leaders of Long Beach, let's pool our efforts and push for something that will benefit residents and local businesses alike. Let's bring the streetcar back to Long Beach.